Hi, welcome to the first episode of me making a 5-minute Tourbillon wristwatch. Over the course of this series, you're going to see me make a good few components, but this first component that I'm making is arguably one of the most important of all in a wristwatch, the mainplate. The mainplate is the body of the watch, and everything within the watch sits on the mainplate. So the accuracy of the holes in the mainplate and everything else to do with the mainplate is extremely important. Here you can see me placing the brass blank on a jig that I made. It has 2 location pins which allow me to remove and replace the brass blank onto the jig mid-machining. This jig is extremely versatile and I'm going to be using it a lot over the course of this watch build. The first thing that needs to be done is to drill the 00 coordinate on the brass blank. All other coordinates stem from this, so getting a nice tidy hole is one of the most important steps of this process. The next thing I'm doing is plotting the coordinates to be able to mill out the hand setting pocket of the watch. I'll go over the process of this when it pops up in the video next. Now you can see I moved the brass blank across to another jig. This is on my other jig borer, the BCA. This allows me to do a bit more dirty work and is also a bit more sturdy than the light jig borer. So the order of operations of what I have to do here is this. I've got to mill a hole quickly with the end mill as you just saw, and then I will put in the centering scope and I will center the scope directly over that hole. This now means that I am centered directly over the hole that I just milled, and I know that the scope is looking directly down the spindle. I now move across to one of the holes that I drilled earlier. I then position the crosshair over the bottom of the hole, and I move between 2 different holes. This then allows me to see how straight I'm moving across the 2 coordinates. If I need to make an adjustment like I'm doing now, I will adjust the rotary axis, and then I keep checking back and forth until I'm perfectly in aligned with both of those holes. When I'm in perfect alignment with those 2 holes, I know I'm going to be milling directly straight down that line. I can then move across and put an end mill in the machine and start milling out the pocket. I then repeat the process in sequence to give me the cutout of the hand setting pocket. Now I am bulk removing with a larger end mill, and this just quickly removes the material that will not be needed for the wristwatch. You can see the finish isn't perfect in the pocket, but we'll sort that out later. Now it's time for the long task of drilling the rest of the coordinates. 74 holes from 2mm drills down to 0.3mm drills. This is going to take a while. So now that I have drilled all the holes, I have to take the brass plate out of the machine and deburr all the holes. I do this using two tools, the ball burrs you can see right in front of my hands, and pizza cutters. At least, that's what I like to call them. So the trick here is light pressure and rolling the cutter between my thumb and my first finger, as you can see I'm doing here. This will remove the burr left by the drill, and it will allow me a nice tidy hole to be able to quality check next. Next, it's on to checking all of the holes that I drilled and their coordinates. I'm going to be using my Mitutoyo PJ3000 optical comparator to do this. I will use 10 and 20 times lenses, and this will give me a good view of all the different holes that I've made. It allows me to check the critical size of holes and features of components, all the way down to the microns. I definitely could not make this watch without this machine. Now that I've confirmed all the holes are correct, it's time to take the brass plate onto the lathe. I'm using the faceplate here, and I'm going to be centering up each hole onto the center of that faceplate. Being able to center up different holes using this method is extremely versatile and allows you to create some amazing shapes in your watch. On this component though, all I have are some circular pockets, nice and easy. So now I have taken the centering microscope and put it into the tailstock. I then look down the crosshairs and I look at the hole and I rotate the faceplate. This shows me whether the hole is centered directly through the center of the spindle. Using the crosshairs, I can see if there is a high or low point of the hole. If there is, you can see me using a bit of wood and I'm hammering it on the high point, and that's bringing that hole closer to the center and running true. There's a bit of a knack to this, and a lot of this process is the setup work. You can see me machining here for not very long. Sometimes it can take you quite a long time to center up a hole, sometimes you can get it first try. I'm now bringing the material to final thickness, or at least 2/100ths over final thickness. So the final cut that I do here is very small and very slow. I take off about a final 1/100th of a millimeter off. You can see me now moving very slowly and skimming it off, and this gives me a great final finish. I've now moved the brass plate across to the shower blade, and as you can see, I've skipped ahead quite a bit. Up to this point, I have used only end mills to plunge and boring bars to cut out the recesses, but right now I'm using the milling attachment and an end mill to cut out the tourbillon pocket. I'll be using this method a lot over the build of this watch, and on the barrel bridge especially, it will allow me to create some really nice shapes that I mentioned earlier. As you will see in the next clip, right now I am cutting the fixed 4th wheel seat. I'm using the dividing attachment here to allow me to inline mill. I'm disengaging the pin and rotating the handle. This method is great for milling, and it allows me to feed the material into the end mill nice and slowly, which is great for both the cutter and the material. So before I did all of this machining, there were 4 holes that I wasn't able to do. But now that I've cleared the material, it's time to do them. I'm drilling these 4 holes with a 0.3mm drill, so I better not wreck it now. Once these 4 holes are completed, that's the main plate done for now. There's a few more processes that I will do off camera, as it would make this video far too long. I've got to install the jewels, and I've got to thread all of the screw holes. This is a long task, and I'll show you it on another component. I'm thinking the barrel bridge next. So that's the first video done. The main plate is complete, for now. The next episode will be on the barrel bridge and its construction and how it fits to the main plate. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with what I'm doing. Thanks for watching.